what do we have instead of a bunch of evidence of anti-Semitism? Because we have this it's like a problem without any solutions and any real indicators, any symptoms. We're just supposed to take these people's word for it that there's this big anti-Semitism crisis.
And
That's
why
the new phrase, the anti-Semitism crisis. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm gonna pass it right to you. But CJ, do you remember her? CJ, do you remember her?
Yes.
Damn, I called it. Remember what I said? I told you guys, like, I said I want to admit if I'm wrong here, but I'm calling it right now. She's a fucking Mossad agent. She's a state agent. She's doing propaganda. There's no way they just found these students. So I'm glad you did this. I knew there was some fucking psyop going on. So here's the subheadline. I'll pass it back to you so you can explain more in detail. No need to read the article when you're here, but I'll just read the subheadline. Registered Israeli foreign agent driving contrived campus anti-Semitism campus, and I seen her everywhere, and I fucking knew it. Why? Do you want to explain a little bit more? And you can continue your thoughts earlier as well.
For sure. Well, so this woman, this is Bella Engber. She is the co-president of the Students Supporting Israel group at New York University, NYU, the most expensive university in the world, I believe, the most expensive private school anywhere in the world, as far as I'm aware. She was pretty central. She is the face of the new lawsuit coming out accusing NYU of harboring anti-Semitism, of having, quote, deliberate indifference to the plight of these poor, oppressed, extraordinarily wealthy young Jewish students. So she is the face of the NYU chapter. The face of the Penn lawsuit is a young man by the name of Eyal Jacobi, an Israeli-American senior. Both of them were trotted out by Republican leadership.
I think this is what you're talking about, right? Let me pull this up.
Yes, that's he is. You can get a sense. He looks a man who is no stranger to systemic oppression. That is certainly a man who grew up on the wrong side of the tracks. You can tell it.
These people are obviously the most privileged people in America. And remember a few weeks ago the segments we covered when they brought
I was just going to bring that up.
And they was like, oh my God, we're so sorry you're going through this. We're sorry you're going through this trauma. People don't understand the pressures you're going through. These are the most privileged people in America, as Wyatt is discussing here. So this is one of the people you were discussing here, right?
Yep. So these guys. Okay, sure, go ahead.
Sorry, Wyatt, but I'm gonna play this because this is new. This is another one. And the reason why I picked the newest version of this, because you can find this story every day. Right? And this is why this is something I focused on. I'm glad that you guys did this expose on the gray zone, because to me, the Zionist project in Israel, they are the number one threat to the civil liberties of Americans.
Yeah.
They are. Is it exporting or importing? Are Zionists exporting their ideology? Because I've been like, are they exporting their ideology or are the Zionists importing it? I don't know. But you guys get it. They're exporting or importing their fascist ideology into the United States. And the American right, who say they care about America first, who were virtue signaling or fighting over liberal attempts at cracking down at free speech, they were more than happy to allow fascist Zionists who are not loyal to the United States to fight against our freedom of speech and our constitutional rights. So I just want to play a little bit of this. We're not going to watch the whole thing. I don't want to spend too much time on this segment in general. I just want to get your reaction because it's just one of many segments that we've seen of them stoking this fake fucking crisis. And I want to get your reaction. Feel free to interrupt anytime if you want to say anything.
Spreads across American college campuses, especially anti-Semitism spreads across American college campuses, especially in the once elite Ivy League. Harvard is now seeing a nearly 20% dip in early admissions applications.
Once elite. I like that how they snuck that in there. The once elite Ivy League school. Just 2 weeks ago, everyone took a poll and decided, you know what? It's actually, Liberty College that's the new top. You know what I mean? They just decided 2 months ago that, because this happened, and this
is not
phantom
regular
anti-Semitism.
admission. This is
Early
people,
admission.
the teacher's pets that send their shit in way early. They're talking about those people haven't sent it in. And understand, propaganda uses percentages, because if they were to put the raw number, you'll realize this is not really that big of an increase. For example, 17%. If you were to take early, how many applications you think they would you're talking about in the thousands. You're talking about 17% is something like maybe 50. You're going to say like 50 less than normal. So what they're doing is taking a baseline of a high baseline and comparing it to down. When admissions fluctuate, the amount of people that are applying fluctuates every year. They're never the same year to year. I only know this because at Cal State Long Beach, I worked in the international admissions office for 2 years. So I know this part, but go ahead.
Well, that's all totally right. And just to kind of rein it in a little bit, we're talking about some of the most privileged people on planet Earth. It really doesn't get much more privilege. They are so privileged that this to them feels like the most traumatic event of their lives, apparently, right? And so what did this guy say, right? And I included this in the story. A.L. Jacobi specifically, right? So this guy who's by the way calling for like a complete and total shutdown on the free speech of his
that's what they're asking for
fellow students. He said during COVID, strict guidelines governed everything from class attendance to graduation walks. But now, when students and faculty defy policies to intimidate Jewish students, where is the same resolute enforcement? So he basically, I guess he wants to like shut them in their dorms or something, and not let them leave. But so you go through this lawsuit, and what is this guy? What is the anti-Semitism that he says? Well, he says that people around him yelled anti-Semitic slurs. Well, what are the anti-Semitic slurs? Well, two of them are Intifada Revolution, and another one is From the River to the Sea. These are the anti-Semitic slurs that he lists. Another incident which is described, but not obviously documented, as none of the alleged actually anti-Semitic incidents, the actually anti-Semitic incidents that they claim happened, none of them, weirdly enough, were documented. So you basically have to take their word for it throughout this entire court complaint. And so
I didn't cover this story the way I did recklessly, fam. Like when this story first hit, I was like, all right, okay, what are your guys' examples of anti-Semitism? I legitimately was like, I want to see what they're saying. And everything they were saying is exactly what you listed. It was like hearsay. Oh, this student said something that made me uncomfortable, or it will be something that was later debunked. You know what I mean?
Also, I didn't call the cops. I didn't file a police report. There's no evidence that it ever happened. But just trust me, take my word about it. Would I lie? That's. And so, okay, so here's what he says. Here's the most like awful experience that he describes in this lawsuit. 84-page lawsuit, by the way. It's quite a bit to get through. He says that a man threateningly approached him and yelled, "Fuck you." And this experience was apparently so horrifying that he missed the next two classes because he was shaken by these escalating acts. So somebody yelled "fuck you" at him, and he couldn't go to class.
Oh my god, bro! And the right wing is going with this snowflakery of the highest level,
right? And it's the same way with the other lawsuit. The NYU lawsuit, which was filed mid-November. This lawsuit gets filed December 5th, the same exact day that the Republicans force all these college presidents to come into Congress and testify. And, they gave that now infamous response of saying, responding to a hypothetical call for the genocide of all Jews. Not a real one, right? Just if somebody hypothetically said this, would this violate your code of conduct on bullying and harassment? And they all demurred. They all, said, well, it depends on the context. And for saying that, one of them, the president of UPenn, has now been forced to resign because of this, a very real victim of a manufactured anti-Semitism crisis. But so the same day that this UPenn lawsuit came out was the same day Jacoby is in front of the House of Representatives delivering this speech, or outside the House of Representatives, giving a press conference with the GOP leadership. So then hours later, they dropped this lawsuit. It's also the same day that the House of Representatives passes legislation equating anti-Zionism with anti-Semitism and saying that we have basically adopted the IHRA working definition of anti-Semitism. We have given them the Israel lobby, this gift that they've wanted for many years, which is to say straight up that criticism of the state of Israel equals criticism of Jews themselves and is therefore anti-Semitic. And so all of this is happening in tandem, right? This is all part of the same move. We are going to codify into law. We are going to effectively come as close as we can to doing that, to having our Congress declare it so, that this is anti-Semitic. Then we are going to come after these college presidents, right? Knowing that basically under our new rules, a call for intifada, you have seen, is now a call for genocide of all Jews, right? Under our new rules that we have established. So we can trot you out here, these college presidents, and if you try to push back on that and say, well, I haven't heard anybody calling for the genocide of all Jews, now we've got you because we have heard intifada. We've heard intifada, and now according to our new rules,
do you see that
is a call for genocide.
With the Harvard president? I covered it on the channel. It was the most bizarre fascist display I've ever seen in my life, because the Harvard president and the Penn president, they couldn't have been more commensurate to Israel in their position. The entire time it was like, I think these pro-Palestinian students are disgusting. I think they're awful. But technically, they're kind of like the free speech thing. And because they said that was got one of them fired. And I looked into remind me what the Penn State president's name. I looked into it.
Liz McGill.
Yeah, Liz McGill. I looked it up. One of the reasons why she got fired, I don't know if you noticed why, was because she had quote unquote anti-Semitic speaker Roger Waters on campus, and that led her to already being in hot water with the Zionist forces on her campus. So when she essentially stood up for free speech, that was the final straw. It wasn't like anyway, go ahead.
So that's specifically mentioned in this lawsuit. Roger Waters' presence on the campus. Also specifically mentioned is the Palestinian Literary Festival, right? And also specifically mentioned is the executed poet academic Rafat al-Arir, killed just a couple weeks ago in a targeted assassination, according to human rights organizations, by Israeli soldiers, killed weeks after basically have a target put on his back after that infamous Barry Weiss Twitter thread where she basically singled him out because he made a joke about a debunked piece of Israeli propaganda claiming that Hamas was baking babies in ovens, a patently ridiculous claim that no evidence has ever emerged from. It's been totally debunked. It's also cited. So Rafat al-Arir, the now slain Palestinian poet, he is cited in this lawsuit as an example of anti-Semitism. His invitation, even though it was subsequently revoked and he never came, they attack him in this lawsuit. But really, the main takeaway, the most kind of interesting thing from this, isn't just that they have put in these Israel lobbies in place to sue these schools. It's not just that these are the first two lawsuits, and they're still planning 4 more against which schools? I believe Yale is on there, UC Berkeley, Harvard, Cornell, Columbia, MIT, Stanford, and UC Berkeley. More lawsuits coming out against all of these schools on, I'm sure, similarly flimsy allegations of anti-Semitism. Where are they coming from? Well, they're coming from a bizarre corporate law firm whose last partner left that law firm to go be U.S. ambassador to Israel. They called from a law firm called Kasowitz Benson Torres, which is notoriously pro-Trump, notoriously a longtime Trump lawyers. They actually registered in 2020. They registered with the Justice Department as a foreign agent. Why? Because they had agreed to represent a Israeli real estate developer who specialized in building luxury housing in for ultra-Orthodox Jews on occupied Palestinian territory in illegal settlements. So this was a big client of theirs for a while, a guy whose basically entire life's mission is to colonize Palestine and to kick Palestinians out of their home and build the nicest, most cushiest furnishings for the illegal settlers who come and follow them. And because they worked for them, they had to register as a foreign agent for an Israeli foreign principal. So basically, they are Israeli foreign agents, right? They are not currently registered, I should say. They gave up that client in 2021. But that shows you just exactly who we're dealing with. People who have very recently registered to work as Israeli foreign agents. That is who is bringing these lawsuits and attempting to dictate speech policy in the United States, right? So that's kind of where this, that to me is arguably the major,
and
the most mind-blowing element of it. But go ahead, yeah.
The builders that you just referred to that register as a foreign agent, do you know their name off the top of the head? Because guess whose husband does build settlements? Wonder Woman's husband. So I'm wondering if it's the same person. Yes. Wonder Woman is married to a guy who is a real estate mogul who builds colonial settlements.
Yep, and that's
I'm wondering if it's the same guy. But go ahead.
I don't believe so. The man in particular is named Naftali Ehrenfreud. David Naftali Ehrenfreud.
That's not him.
Yeah, so he basically was behind a settlement called Modin Elit that took the developer's name is Kiryat Sefer, is the name of the company, and they were involved in this long-term settlement, which took over a decade to complete. There were a lot of very strange questions about finances during that time, but ultimately it was completed. They were able to, run roughshod over this Palestinian territory and basically dominate it. So yeah, this Modin Elit settlement, which is notorious basically for having a particularly fanatical population. So that's really who we're talking about, though. We're talking about the most hardcore fringe of the settlers, right? That's really who these people align with, and that's who we're having our Israel policy guided by right now, or just these insanely Zionist figures, people working directly with the Israeli government, in many cases with these students, and then this law firm that has been described as Bibi Netanyahu's guys in the Trump White House.